Hey guys, it is Scotch for Dummies here, going like global almost.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's a bit of a stretch. We haven't had to do this kind of virtual dramming together in a while, but here we are.
Yes, this is like a COVID thing. We used to do that.
I know where we are. Where are you?
I am moonlighting at let's see, Solanchoff. You can figure that out. If you can read the glass.
Scotch on the Bayou.
These are new. She has not shown these off yet. I'm the first one getting to use them.
Because they're cool glasses.
They are. She's done. They're really nicely etched. I'm excited for her to launch them on her show. But I am in Louisiana, Baton Rouge.
Nice.
Very nice. You're down there for fun and work and travel and all sorts of things, right?
She's been honest to get down there to the camp for a while. You made it. I've made it. So, Sean, Drew, you guys are on the hot seat.
Yeah, you need to go down for a football game and
it's on our list. We're on the list.
But we're obviously missing Drew. That didn't. He had a bit of an emergency pop up about an hour ago before the show, so he's not going to make it. But that's all right. We're gonna figure this out. We got a pretty big show. The end of the King of the Hill has come upon us, right?
It has.
So we're going to dive into that. I do want to virtually wish you guys a happy Thursday.
Man, happy Thursday.
What you got in the glass?
Well, I'm gearing up with some monkey shoulder. Seems like a good warm-up dram. Blended malt, all that good stuff. Just missed out on making it to this round, so I figured that was a good warm-up for what we got going on tonight.
Yeah, I don't. I'll say Bob H is in, so I'm actually warming up a little bit of that ladder foot, which he was upset that we ended up with a bottle, but he got a big sample of it. But yeah, so I'm drinking a little bit of that ladder foot to start out.
I had some already, and it was delicious, but I thought I should bring myself back down a little bit before we did this. So,
yeah,
well, interesting bottle for you to start off with, Sean, and we'll get into why when we dive into the whole blend category and what really happened over the last, I don't know, what has it been, 6 months?
Maybe a little bit longer. Honestly.
I think we started in May.
Are you going to pull it up, or do you want me to see if I can find that sheet to pull up?
Oh, I've got it. We want to share our screen, or we just want to reference it?
No, you can share the screen. If you want to share the spreadsheet, we can do that. So the key is, what part of the things we want to talk through was how we got tonight is the individual sampling and tasting and rating of our blend King of the Hill. So this
well, let's back up and say hi to a couple people.
Oh, yeah.
We've got we're going to fall so far behind here. Why don't you run through and I do believe that our infamous Tom R.
He was first.
Tom R was first.
Of course he was. I'll drink to that.
Yep. Cheers. We got Bob H. We got Wind in Trooper.
Hey, Trooper Henry.
Hippie. Working nights. Ooh, that's tough. Peter Newton's in. Single malt class S total wine. Yeah, that
very nice.
Nice. Good for you, Peter. That sounds fun.
It's always good to train. We got Chad Anderson. Chad's in. Bobby J. We already talked about it. Oh, look at this.
Scotch on the Bayou.
Do you not know where she is?
Come on,
She's on the other side of that door.
Well,
what's she doing over there?
Yeah, she could be in with you.
She very well may. I might have to holler and get her in here once we get into the business side of things.
Magnus is in on YouTube, and so is Brandon.
Very nice.
Dr. Martin.
Hey, Martin. I saw him over on Scotch on the Bayou's channel on Tuesday. I got to moonlight on that.
I saw him there. There's Pierre as well, and Kim. Hello, man.
Hey, great. Kim and Pierre.
Eric says our audio is muffled.
It is muffled, Eric, and I didn't want to say that to them in the middle of the show, but thank you.
Sorry, man. We threw this together at the last minute. We'll just talk louder. How about that?
That is true.
I can work through settings that maybe I can get an audio setting that I can maybe fix.
Get the microphone closer.
Yeah, the problem is we're working around the webcam mic, which is opposed to the Rode mic, which is what we wanted.
There we go.
Check one, check two. Is that better?
That's got to be better.
All right.
Boom.
Okay, that's what we needed.
with that being said, thank you for mentioning it, Eric.
Yes, Eric, you totally saved
us on that
the
one.
show. All right.
And that's why we want to check it before we get too far in.
All right. Yeah, Drew's okay. Cam, thanks. Eric, let's see who else we got in here. Tamar, Scotch, Bob H. Oh, look at that.
There we go.
What's that supposed to mean?
He doesn't seem too happy with that ladder foot.
Oh,
hey, if you want to come over here.
Oh, there's still more.
Oh man,
frowny faces. Don't be frowny faced, man.
Come on down. Well, we got some ladder foot left.
What you should be doing is going, why don't I have another sample?
So I see this guy's in as well. And I learned from Lee today that they are planning, she is now going to some huge whiskey festival up in the upper northwest, or should I say southern southwest of Canada here next year. And Chad's going to be there, and sounds like it's going to be a really good event.
Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, go back. Let's back up and at least start with what the King of the Hill was, right? We started this thing back in May, not really knowing that it was going to be a rest of the year topic. But it's turned into it, and it's been really fun. We've had a lot of surprises. I know I've been humbled a few times. But basically what we've done is we've taken a bunch of different scotches and paired them off sort of mano-a-mano boxing style. But we decided to break them into categories because it wouldn't be fair to just throw them all into the ring, blood sport style, right, Sean?
I mean, I think it's fine.
But so what we ended up with is I think 5 categories, one of which didn't get included in the end here because it's Irish whiskeys. And, this is a Scotch channel. So we started off with sherry bombs and peats, right? Those are 2 huge categories. Then we had a blend category. Obviously, that's a big category. And then we ended with an ex-bourbon category. So tried to find whiskeys that didn't have any finishes per se.
Correct.
All of those fought within their categories, and each bottle's held the title for various periods of time. And now we have 4 kings, a king of each category. And those kings are, let me scroll over here and look at this. The sherry category king is Bunnahabhain 12. The peated category is Peat Monster. I know, it's a blend too, kind of weird. Ex-bourbon ended up being Aaron 10, and the blended is that bottle in front of you.
Naked.
Bottle, so I think it got fun. At the end, we let a lot of people vote to bring back a loser that they thought, kind of got done wrong. Maybe had a bad night, right? I mean, it happens. And interestingly enough, some of those that were voted back actually ended up winning.
Right.
Some did not. So it was really interesting to see. But what we're going to do tonight, and Andrew, do you have the spreadsheet pulled up as well?
I do. I think I can pull it up here.
So we can both reference it. What we're going to do tonight's show is dedicated to the blended category, everyone. And we're going to talk about what happened in this category over the past 6 months, the ups, the downs, the fights, oh, wow, I picked that glass and thought I was voting for that bottle.
Yeah. That was pretty messed up.
I will say that this category was kind of a scrappy category. Like
it was.
There was a lot of 1 week winners, give or take.
There was. But the 2 that held the belt or the title the longest ended up fighting it out again and at the end.
Yes.
It was voted back. And so it was like a second chance. And this is the bottle that we ended up with. I mean, it just is what it is. Everyone, these are blind tastes. Now, mind you, I think we all had a pretty good idea of what was in each glass after we tested, or we thought we did.
Mm-hmm.
I know you, Andrew, for just as many times as me, were just like, what bottle won? I swear that bottle was in that glass, and it was switched.
Yeah. I have a bad memory of tasting whiskey. I can analyze whiskey, but I don't remember what the components of a certain bottle. So every week I was going in like I was what, a goldfish. You don't remember what you had last week. So we try these new bottles, and we're like, just talking through, analyzing each whiskey on the day to understand what we're going through. And I was blown away half the time. At least half the time. I didn't know what I was tasting.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have a picture in your head sometimes of what you think that this particular bottle is going to taste like, or the flavor influences you're going to get out of it. And once you actually dive into it and you don't have any idea which one's which, it's humbling. It's a humbling experience sometimes.
Yeah, I would recommend that people pour samples of some of your whiskeys, put a dot on them or something and create a code and just scatter them up and then walk away for a few weeks and then come back and blind them. You won't believe how hard that is when you do that.
So I know they were blind and they were put in colored glasses. So for the most part, they were blind. But I got to say that just having the bottles out in front of you, I think maybe even influenced what I thought was in each glass. Seeing the color of a particular bottle, I had these perceptions of what I thought I would taste out of that color. And then I would taste a glass and I'm like, oh yeah, that's that bottle. It's just so funny how your mind starts playing on this. Yeah. And especially when the reveal comes and you don't have to confess to being humbled, but you're in the back of your mind, you're like, oh shit. Man.
I don't mind confessing to it. Like, no. I think it's, I've been with too many people, and there are some people who are really good about it, right? Like they can remember whiskeys, they can describe them accurately to you. But I would say 95% of the population is not those people. And if you get somebody that's doing that, most of the time they're just pulling it out their ass. They don't know.
Right.
They don't really know. Yeah. You take some of these people that think they're so pompous about, oh yeah, I can tell a certain whiskey. All right, let me give you a blind and see how good you do.
Yep. Right. There are some. I mean, 99 out of 100 McKellans, I get sulfur on.
Oh, well,
yeah. Lagavulin 16 has been a go-to that it's just drilled into my palate, right? You know it. But those are the ones that you're drinking a lot of, and so that's how they get there. But some of these, come on, man. So I need to pour something else. The door's closed, so Leanne's not in here.
Oh, well, you better make it something that's not going to ruin your palate for what we're going to do here in a minute.
Because so this Naked is a sherry cask finished blend. So you got to be a little careful. Maybe a bourbon finish or another blend or all grain or something like that.
Is there any White Walker back there?
No, there's not. But you know what? I do have a blend that...
Or we could just get right into it.
That I'm interested in trying. I went and saw a friend for dinner tonight, and I asked Lee, I'm like, hey, I need a sample from your pool here that I can take to a friend that they're not really Scotch drinkers. And so she suggested this Compass Box Orchard House.
Well, that's not going to be fair. I don't think that's fair because it's going to destroy the Naked.
No, it's not. It's there's no.
Well, okay, so the Orchard is a really. I don't think
I've
never moved into a fruity. That's fruity.
Get the car.
Just a sample. So as we talk through what happened, and mind you guys, I haven't looked at the chat in a while. I don't know if there's any questions, comments, or concerns about how this is going.
So should we talk about how we're going to finish this King of the Hill series out and what we're going to do as far as scoring and how, maybe the tiebreaker if there's one that's needed. I enjoyed the idea we came up with earlier, but we should probably do one that's a little more family friendly.
Yeah, let me share. Hold on, I'm going to share the spreadsheet with all of the blends we went through. Where did it go?
Chrome tab.
Is that it?
We'll find out.
I don't think that's it. I'm trying to find the. Yeah, there it is. All right. So these are the whiskeys that we had into the pool, not necessarily in the exact order when we tasted them, but these are the whiskeys that were part of the blend category.
Hey, Andrew, go to the return options real quick.
What?
Return options. Now scroll down to the sherry category ones. It's a easier list. You passed it. Column B, right there.
All right, blends, you mean?
Yeah.
All right,
Oh, did I say sherry's?
you did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all right. So this list here of all these blends, these were all were part of a head-to-head. Many of them. So the column C, is that what it lost to? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it lost to. So if we go through here and hit our blends category, we can do the whole genealogy, but we're not going to tonight. But all of these blends were in the discussion. Most of them lost. But what you'll see is that a couple of them were big. Naked won a couple. Monkey Shoulder won a couple. Did Doers win any? I don't look like.
It's kind of a scrappy category.
It is.
Right.
So what the point of this? So the reason I went to the blends category here is I wanted to show a little bit about what we were trying to do. We were trying to keep them roughly accessible, that you can get in any reasonable whiskey store at a reasonable price. So you can see none of them were over $60. Even Black Bull and GW Green that were a little more expensive, they didn't compete against some of these other ones that were in the category. All of these are in that $30 to $40 range, which is a great price. These are an everyday drinker. If you drink whiskey, you want a dram when you come home, these are your whiskeys. And that's why we did this, because so many people have daily drinkers, and we wanted to pick the best daily drinker you could get that's a blend. And here you go.
So our winner for the category is a $31 bottle.
It's a $31 non-age statement blended whiskey, blended malt.
Right. And a couple things that what jumps out, when you look at this, right? I mean, honestly, what jumps out to me the first is there were 2 15-year-olds and 3 12-year-olds in this category, and it ends up with an NAS.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, the people that are
but to be fair, the 2 whiskeys that won multiple rounds are both blended malts and not blended scotches.
Sure. There's a 15-year-old blended malt in that list that didn't fare too well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
That is completely true.
An expensive one also. That's almost 2 bottles of Naked right there.
Exactly. So, I mean, there was some interesting fights, but early on in the show, I had, you said you had warmed up with Monkey Shoulder. And I said, well, what's interesting about that is Monkey Shoulder and Naked had won 2 fights before. So they had both won 2 fights. Monkey Shoulder beat Johnny Walker Green and beat Buchanan's 12.
Okay.
And then turned around and lost to Dimple Pinch. Dimple Pinch ends up losing to Black Bull 12, which loses to a Compass Box. And eventually that Compass Box gets beat by Naked, who then turns around and defends against Copper Dog. So Naked and Monkey Shoulder both defend them for, a couple fights. And what ends up happening? People vote back Monkey Shoulder for a second crack at the, so they got to go head to head. Because the way it shook out, they both held the title for 2 weeks, but they never got to fight each other. And so it was really cool that that's the way it worked out. And that's what happened. Yep. And I thought it was a really interesting fight.
It wasn't that close, was it? If I remember
it wasn't as close as I thought, but I actually, doing them head to head, I think brought out different flavors in Monkey Shoulder than I expected. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I've been sitting here. I've had 2 glasses of Monkey Shoulder since we started this, and it's good. Like, I've been nosing it, sipping it. It's a really nice whiskey.
Yeah,
and I've got the great big bottle down there still to go through.
Oh,
but it's the King Kong version. But I just really like this whiskey. It's a really well put together dram.
This is so hilarious.
And like, there's little brother right there. Right?
That is so funny.
But there was just something about the Naked that it's a really nice malt whiskey. And you're talking about Macallan and Highland Park and what else is in there? Glenrothes, I think, and and it's sherry cask finished, and I mean it's a really good bottle. So I'm anxious to put a number to this. So we are gonna not tell everybody what our numbers are tonight. Is that correct?
Right, exactly. You wanted to go over how this comes to an end. Okay. The whole 6 months, it's been pretty easy. We've picked a glass that's the winner, and that's the one. It was easy, right? Now, as we come to the end, as each category, we fought out the categories and we know what the kings are. How do we fight the king of each category against each other? It's not fair to continue the fights the same way, to put a peated against a sherried blind. You know which one's which, right? And so we decided to end this in a more fair, even playing field, if that makes sense. So, Sean, explain to me what we're going to do.
So we're all going to individually score each whiskey. We're going to write it down on a note card. We're going to put it in an envelope. We're not going to discuss it. So
no, we're going to go through like a normal.
Well, we will, but not tonight. I'm not going to know your score, and you're not going to know my score.
We won't discuss the number.
We're going to discuss the whiskey itself,
Sure.
but we're not going to discuss our numbers or what our score is tonight. So it's going to get sealed up, and we're going to do that for all 4 categories. So because really the only way to compare these is a score based on the category that the whiskey is in. How good a blend is this compared to all the other blends? You know, sherry category. You know, we're going to be scoring it based off sherried whiskeys and what we look for in a sherried whiskey. Same with peated. So I think that will be very interesting. And obviously, you know, we're all going to have different opinions on that. So then once we've scored all the whiskeys, we're going to open the envelopes. We're going to add the scores together. So this won't be an average. This will be a sum total. So each whiskey has a possible high score of 16. So if we all give it a 3, then it's going to have a score of 12. Whoever gets the highest score wins the King of the Hill for the year.
Now we're doing quarter scores.
We are going to do quarter scores for this particular round, and then if there's a tie, we have some ideas for a tiebreaker. I like my idea, but I don't know if we can get all the
arm wrestle
requisite.
A monkey shoulder against
my other idea.
Yeah, I know what idea you're talking about, Sean, and it's, I mean, we'd have to do that on a Zoom call, maybe not a YouTube channel.
It would be amazing. It would be totally amazing. I would pay money to see it. Anyway,
right.
But we need 4 scores. So is there any way that you have another whiskey person in your room with you, or we're gonna get Drew's on a separate call?
So I guess why don't we just ask the folks watching? You know, Drew's not in. Do you guys want to keep and let Drew do a score when he can? He's just not available tonight, obviously. Or do we just have a sit-in judge, which is completely and utterly normal and acceptable to me? And I go get scotch in the bayou, pull up a chair, and she talks through Naked Malt.
Honestly, I think that is a more fair comparison, because just from the fact that it changes every night, right?
Well,
and if you're not talking through it with somebody else, then you don't always get everything out of the whiskey that I think you might want to get. And I trust Leanne's palate. So
yeah.
And I think she's actually pretty close to what Drew would probably pick.
Yeah,
well, and I think it only fair. She's lending me her studio, and she did go out and buy a bottle of Naked to make sure I had something to do this show with tonight. Because I was going to bring a sample and I was going to pack it. I'm like, I'm not packing a sample. We'll go to a liquor store and I'll buy a bottle. That's the whole beauty of this.
It's $30.
All right. Go knock on the door.
I'll go get her and an extra glass and an extra chair.
So I think that this will be a fair way to do it. And Leanne's got a good palate. I'm not worried about her giving
I've been pushing at a screen. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. We're fine. Everybody can see me.
So while we go through that discussion, there is some potential for a visitor that we might have.
Yeah. So I have a new dog in the house. Her name's Shadow. I think she might be sleeping, though. I don't think she's going to be like Molly and come for a visit, but you never know. So if she does come down, she's slightly larger than Molly was, and I don't know if we can get her all in frame, but we'll give it a shot. And you guys can say hi to her.
We'll see. We also got some questions on Discord this week.
Did we?
We did. So there was a question that came through that was an interesting question. We probably have time for at least a quick abbreviation on it. So there's a question that came in for Dr. Scotch. And Dr. Scotch hasn't been on a while, but I was able to get a hold of him and go through this. So the question was, we hear about in peated whiskeys, you have a ppm of phenols that are in there that you work through. The question was, are there anything in like sherried whiskeys that have the potential to, can you like measure a level of sherriedness in a Scotch?
That's actually a really good question.
So I wanted to pose that question, Dr. Scott. So let me go see if I can find them.
All right.
And then I guess I'll bring you guys back in and you can talk through that while I go find Dr. Scott.
All right.
So,
Dr. Scotch, I'm kind of curious about this question actually because it's
let me see you.
Well, and the phenols are interesting because that's prior to distilling. So it's not like they're measuring it in the whiskey itself. So I would be curious to hear Dr. Scott's answer on this.
Where'd it go?
Oh, I think I took it. I'll go grab it.
Leanne, how you doing?
Hey,
I'll go
dear.
grab it.
I'm good. No, got it.
She's going to get another extra glass. I have to find one for to pour this in when we get there. We're all drinking from Scotch in the Bayou
Get a big
glassware.
glass.
Hey, what's up, guys? What's going on?
Oh, it's Dr. Scotch.
Hey,
Look at
guys.
this.
How you doing?
Very nice. Good to see you.
Hey,
Repeat the question.
I heard you got a new question.
We have all kinds of questions.
Well, you know what? I have answers.
All right. So peated whiskey,
Mm-hmm.
you can measure the phenols in the grain before you distill this whiskey.
That's part of distillation. Yeah.
Is there a similar way to measure the sherriedness of Scotch in sherried whiskeys?
So sherried whiskeys are such a combination of flavors. Now, there is a way to determine how much of each flavor is in a whiskey.
Okay.
So I happen to know that there is a website that I've gone to, and maybe we can share this here. That is really interesting to note that this is a published paper that is on the PubMed Central Aroma of Sherry Product, a review. So this is produced in 2021. This is a detail. This is kind of a compilation study. So this is one of those studies that they didn't do all the individual work. They were able to pull data from a bunch of different studies and kind of compile them all into a common study.
Okay.
And one of the things that is incredibly fascinating right here is if you go down to table 1 of this publication, and it goes into great detail, and hopefully you can see this. I don't know if I can zoom it up. I don't know if I can zoom this up anymore. But table 1 goes through each individual flavor component by its chemical name, as well as what flavor you're talking through. So typically when you talk about ppm whiskey, you're talking about the phenols. So let's scroll down.
Holy cow.
Guaiacol. So guaiacol is one of the volatile phenols. It is primary phenolic, smoky, spicy flavor. Okay. That's what you get in a lot of, especially because it's got some vanilla in it too. That's a really heavily favored component in like Lagavulin 16.
Right.
Because it's got some of those. But if you want to find out what flavor whiskey you want, well, okay, pick a flavor. Do you want pineapple varnish? Well, then you use ethyl acetate. Do you want ethyl iso, or do you want apple pineapple? Well, then you use ethyl isobutanoate. I mean, so it is really stunning to me how detailed you can get in each flavor component that is in a whiskey. And if you look up here, this is the third column here. This is the milligrams per liter of that material. So overripe apple. So that's apple component is really common in lots of whiskeys.
Right.
And that range can be from 85 milligram per liter to 545 milligrams per liter. So
basically, if we were under 85 milligrams per liter, we wouldn't probably be able to taste it.
You probably wouldn't be able to taste it. And even at 85, you may not be able to. But when you get into that 400 or 500, you can really taste. Okay. So I would recommend anybody that's interested in this topic to go to this report. And I'm going to put this up here. Aroma of Sherry Products, a review. It was put out online in April 1st of 2021 on Foods. It looks like Foods Magazine. This is an amazing review that goes through, and you can really pull out every detail about what kind of flavor you want in a whiskey. And then
crazy.
So, there is a whiskey called Glyph.
Yes.
That they have gone through whiskey and they've tried to create a synthetic whiskey. So they take neutral grain spirit and they start adding some of these components back.
I would say tried, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. It was probably not the first version that I tasted was not a successful rendition of what a good whiskey is, because the problem is these components are all actively available on the open market. You can buy hexanoic acid anytime, but it's going to taste like sweat. So maybe you don't want that. Some of these also taste like cheese. I mean, some of these other components, decanoic acid. It's rancid. Not a great whiskey taste, but it's in some whiskeys. So the key with this is you got to pick the right flavors, and you got to be able to buy them at a reasonable rate so you can put it in a bottle of whiskey and sell it. Some of these compounds are a little bit harder to isolate, and so to get a really pure version of hexanol may be tricky. And so you can't get that, and you can't add that flavor component.
It's not in Tide Pods, is it?
So to answer the original question, we could measure those compounds to see how much of that flavor component that we're getting from the sherry is in that current whiskey.
That would be true. And those compounds, so you think about a sherry whiskey, and you get, I didn't go through this list in great detail to say, I'm looking for leather, I'm looking for a cherry. So I know one of the compounds, and I don't know which grouping it is like cherry flavor, and that's furfuranol, which is one of the compounds that it's got to be in here. But it's what I get in a lot of like the oxidized whiskeys. And I guess if you're gonna find it,
I see some fun flavors in here.
Yeah. So you want pineapple varnish or banana apple? It's up to you.
So I mean that's fun. I'm actually going to go read some of this.
It's a really interesting article. And these ppms or these milligrams per liter there's a huge range on some of these.
So it would be possible, but it wouldn't be very practical. In essence, there's not a convenient way to just say, well, this one compound is in there. So
yeah, if you found the primary flavor component you like, you could test your whiskey for these compounds. You could find a whiskey that matches your profile, maybe.
But you're talking Oloroso versus PX, and what kind of flavor components you have in, and how much.
Yeah, how long did it stay in the barrel? How old was the barrel? How much was in it? So
the answer is no. Not really.
It's more tricky. So the reason I say that, and let's go back to the main. We can actually close this out, because the key here is there's so many flavor components in whiskey that when you're talking about a peated whiskey, it's much easier because the phenols that guaiacol is one of your primary components. Where with a peated whiskey or with a sherried whiskey, all those other components are a much more nuanced a relative ratio. It's really hard to do. So I would say
not so much.
Good luck with that. If you want to, maybe you can figure it out. If you could find a whiskey that you really like and then could analyze it and get those ratios, then you're in.
Okay. I think I'll just look at the color and determine from there.
That may be a better answer. All right. We'll see you guys.
See you, Dr. Scott.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, while he's out, we actually went ahead and poured our glass that we're going to judge and put coins on just to give it a couple of seconds to air, because that's the way we did the fights all year. We pre-poured before the show, so they had a minute to sit. So I forgot to do that before the show. I don't know if you guys did that or not.
We just poured ours. I've just been swirling mine and sniffing it. So
okay.
We're getting good shape. We got these like nice wide. I watched the Scotch for Dummies glassware video the other day to determine which glass I was going to use, and I chose this instead of mug.
You didn't choose the mug?
The mug was second. I'm not going to lie.
Hey, Andrew, welcome back. That's
Dr.
Scotch guy what a nerd, man. That dude just geeks out on some weird
I miss seeing him.
You miss seeing
I
him?
miss seeing
It's been
him.
minutes since we saw him.
I would say I'm kind of intrigued by that article that Dr. Scotch brought. Like, it's interesting to see all these different flavor components and what they bring to the table and how much of it you would need. Like some of that you didn't need very much at all.
No, it was like
to,
ppm levels of some of those components, 0.009 milligrams per liter.
Which tells me that your body is looking for that rancid taste a lot harder than it's looking for banana, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, it just takes more of that flavor to set it off. So
the human body has got a very high sensitivity to rancid.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't get anywhere near that.
That seems fair. So,
All right. So
on
let's
the
go.
opposite of rancid, we have this bottle of Naked.
All
You
right.
guys got your whiskeys? Are we ready to do
I
this?
poured it in the wrong glass.
Pour another one.
Yeah, I poured it in the wrong glass. And a glass that had whiskey in it before. Let me pour it in this one.
That's not fair.
Is it your
And
first
shout out
time?
to Rich for the
Well,
your
thank you,
super
Rich.
chat.
Okay,
Yeah,
that is the whiskey we're going to be reviewing. So I'm going to toast it.
And
while
out of
we're doing it.
curiosity, I come on. Okay, so Glenn, thank you, Tom. I was going to say, I can't believe someone has not answered this question to Justin with Glendronach 18. Why is this taking so long? Don't make me type it. Thank you, Tom, for doing that. All right. So
All right.
let's talk
Go
about
on
it. Let's
and
tail the tape. What does our king have? Our king was a blended malt.
Blended malt, 43%.
43% ABV.
43%. Has gone through a name change recently. It might have actually started the whole series as Naked Grouse. I don't remember. It's Naked Malt now for those that haven't heard that. But
Then it moved to LA, and now it's just Naked.
it is.
It goes by one name now.
I guess. I don't
It's
know.
Fancy.
It's trying to break into the business
God,
and
that beach in Hawaii you're
change
telling
its
me?
name.
Exactly.
Oh, good,
And
man.
the price point on Naked is $30.99. That's what we paid for it when it first entered the ring. So let's just say $30, right? That's fair. And it's the king of the blends. So guys, we're gonna do this old school Scotch for Dummy style, right? We're gonna talk through this, and then we're gonna grade it or rate it without saying it out loud, because we're all gonna write it on our infamous pieces of paper. And all you at home watching will have to wait until we get to the final round with the other three categories.
So I have a question about your rating. Are you putting your name by your rating? So you know, like when all four of your things go together, who did what?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we do need to do that.
So write down
Because
that
we're going to have to defend ourselves. I don't
Scotch.
want to come up with a score and be like, yeah, I don't really remember what number I gave it.
Yeah, we got weeks until we're going to actually reveal these. All right, so let's start with the nose. We're gonna do this.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do. Boy, it's been so long since we did a regular review. What are we doing? All right, on the nose. What do you got?
What do we?
So the beauty of this is we can all nose it at the same time.
It's got a nice, sweet sherry nose.
It is. It's really sherry.
I don't get a lot of like the oxidized leather and old books and like dark tea and chocolate and stuff. It's just a lot of like sweet, rich caramel notes to it.
A little bit of maybe fig and some of the dried fruit, maybe dried apricot a little bit.
Linden's cough syrup, cherry cough syrups, the ones that you used to eat when you were a kid, not because
Just
you had a cough, but
as
you
candy.
you just wanted to eat them. It's
The little white box. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Little-
smashed up box.
Little,
So are you getting that much cherry?
I'm not getting cherry. I'm getting,
Yeah, I'm not getting
kind of
cherry.
afraid to tell you what I'm getting on this.
No, you should
No,
tell
come
us.
on, bring it.
You're
So,
replacing
getting-
food.
So the great thing about a smell, right, is it triggers a memory
Well,
like-
sure.
that fast.
Yeah.
Because you're all those smells are somewhere in a data bank. If you can recall a smell, it's tied to a memory into your brain data bank. This is sweet feed for my horse.
Really?
Sweet
Yeah.
feed for your horse.
This
That's
is
a
this
malt.
is horse food. This is sweet feed. So it's
Did you
it's
feed barley?
like a sugared, like a burnt sugar malty, like that's sweet feed. It's a grain. I mean, I'm not smelling like grain, alcohol grain, but a grain like malt. And the caramelization part of it, immediately I went to a bucket of sweet feed that I poured for my bay gelding named Buddy, because that's original for a horse, right? And
So,
yeah, sweet
It's
feed.
so interesting. See, so if I'm watching the
Yes, Trooper molasses.
yes, that's what I'm saying. Look at the comments, because it is like it's a sweetness, but it is earthy, like sorghum or something, where you get a lot of base, dark, almost bitter, burnt flavor in that molasses.
I give vanilla pudding.
You
Taste
should drink it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I did take a taste. I mean, our old reviews, we just, we went in on our own at our own pace and then started just trying to talk our way through them. And then everybody got a chance to talk about them. So, honestly, the initial nose, I was getting those cherry cough drops. 30 seconds after nosing it, that was gone. And I started getting a vanilla note. And that's when I decided to just go in and take a hit. And I actually got a vanilla pudding down the center of my palate, which was interesting because I know it's a little bit more sherried than that, if you will. I guess more red fruit than that.
I don't know. I mean, my first sip, I got a very like creme brulee kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's got some nice burnt caramelized sugars to it, and it had like a nice vanilla custard note. And then I got a little bit of like baking spices and things like that on the side that made it really nice. But I mean, a very approachable dram. I'm very easy sipper.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Mark, though. I'm not getting as much sherry influence. So I'm wondering if I'm definitely missing a couple of things in here.
Do you guys remember the malts that are in this?
It's all Edrington group. So it's like Macallan and Highland Park. And I think it's got Glenrothes in it.
I'm not sure they tell you though, do they?
Yeah, but it's all over.
Yeah.
But and I think they used to put wasn't Glencadam. There was another Glen that they used to put in there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that they stopped once they sold. So those were the three that I was looking at tonight.
I mean, right now, in the back of my mind, I'm nosing this, I'm tasting this, and I keep coming back to $30.99, and I'm going, hell yeah! I mean,
right?
But I think in my job tonight, I'm not supposed to be thinking in that price point. I can't take price point into the consideration. I'm going straight on flavor and nose here because the price points aren't going to be similar now that it's going to mean this is not going to be similar to Bunnahabhain 12 as price point. That's because Bunnahabhain 12 is a single malt age.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to take it as the blend category, right?
Right. Not necessarily sherry because we're talking a lot about sherry.
Yeah.
But it's blunt, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying that
and a flavor component to it. But as far as like blends go, how are you feeling about the blend itself? Is it a good blend? Does it give you good flavor characteristics? Honestly, for me in the blend category, I'm kind of thinking, would it make a good cocktail? Because a lot of blends, that's what they're for. So would this mix well with to make like a Scotch and soda or a Rob Roy or something like that? Does it have enough flavor to stand up if you put it in something to like actually add a flavor component to it?
So Kim's got a question. Is there a preference? What is that? Between a preference or a difference? They're the same thing. That's just a name change, Kim. So it used to be Naked Grouse, and they decided to drop the grouse from it because I guess they were getting they wanted to differentiate it from the other grouses. Which other ones are? There's Famous Grouse and Smoky Grouse, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they changed the name of Smoky Grouse or not. I mean, the original is Famous Grouse, so I don't see them changing that name.
So, yeah, the difference with that is it's a blended Scotch, so it's not a malt. This is a malt, and so if you're using grouse and you're thinking blended Scotch, they wanted to pull that away. This is a blended malt,
right?
Well, and I think they did that too. Yeah, I think they did it too to go head to head against Monkey Shoulder.
Yep,
correct.
They absolutely did. They even dropped the price a little bit.
Yeah.
And it
did go.
It did beat Naked or Monkey Shoulder head to head. But I think why I was saying sharing notes is I think there's a bias of perception in visual. You look at the bottle and you automatically go into there's going to be some of those dark red fruits that I want in that bottle. And I'm not getting them that much tonight. I'm really not.
So Martin is a great resource for information. So I'm gonna put his comment up here about Glenrothes, Glentura, Highland Park, Macallan, and Camden. Those are potential suppliers to this.
Right.
We don't know exactly who or what the ratio is, but they're all good incoming material.
So non-age statement as well, but as far as blends, I got to come up with a number 0 to 4, and I'm allowed to use quarter scores, so 3.25 or 2.75 or something of that is possible, right?
Yep.
Have you added water? So the key with this whiskey is I'm trying to find like edges and errors and things in this whiskey, and I'm having a hard time. So it's not a heavily sherry whiskey. So there's some sherry influence, but I think what that does is that broadens the palate within this whiskey. There's lots of malt in there. There's a little bit of sherry. There's a little bit of oakiness in there. It's a fairly well balanced whiskey, and so that's kind of what you're looking for in a blend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just 3 drops of water. That thing needs it's going through a change.
Don't we all?
Are you trans on the whiskey? What's going on there?
I put a couple drops on it, just a few. I mean, it's 43%. I don't want to kill this whiskey, but I do think that some water is going to change things up a little bit.
It brought out some fruitiness.
Yeah, I would agree.
Although I was starting to get some more fruity notes in it before I added the water. So I think the water just kind of pumped that up a little bit. So now I'm getting some like dried fruit notes. There's a little bit of dark tea in there. So I think some of the sherry influence is coming forward with the water, which is kind of nice actually, because if you think about the blended category, you're going to put something in this glass with this whiskey
generally.
And if that brings out some of the like sherried notes and some of that fruitiness stuff, like if you were making a Rob Roy or something like that, and you're adding some fruit into it anyway, it's just going to accentuate and really go with that flavor profile.
And I would say that bitterness tannin quality is really great because that counterbalances anything. So it doesn't make your drink overly sweet, because it kind of brings those flavors together with some sweet fruit or, even a tonic or something fairly sweetened by that perspective. And then you add the bitterness. So,
what do you got?
I'm still on the finish out of neat because it's hanging,
Yeah.
Finish really stays there. I mean, it's nice, warm, mid palate and all. But when you were talking about the cocktail, we're kind of partial to one down here called an old fashioned. And I think this would make a hella old fashioned.
Right.
And for God's sake, don't ever muddle the fruit. Sorry, you just don't do that. But I was thinking about that sweet.
Right.
You have that first hit of sweet, the citrus off of an old fashioned or something like that would counterbalance it nicely.
So, Mark, what are you thinking?
I was reading a comment or two back there, but honestly, I like Sean was right about the water, but right before he started talking, I actually got a little bit of a chocolate note, and then when he started talking about some of those red berry notes, they kind of took over. I mean, maybe he was talking about, but they were there. So I'm really struggling in my mind on how I want to grade this, because I'm trying not to compare it to any of the other blends. It's already won. It's already beat all those. And I'm not trying to compare it to the other Kings, because that's not fair either. I'm literally just trying to strip all that away and judge this whiskey by itself right now in front of me. Would I buy it again? Do I want it? Do I reach for it again?
If someone was walking up off the street and said, what rating would you give that, knowing what you have? I think that's the number you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, because we oftentimes will consider the value. So for $30, you get a Scotch, and this is the Scotch, and so there's a value component to that. But if it's $30 and it's terrible, it's White Walker for $30. It's not going to score well because it's really bad whiskey for $30. This is not like Glendronach 18 or 21, but it's also a fifth of the price. And so for $30, you wouldn't expect that kind of flavor. But is this one of those whiskeys that are like, I don't really like it? I mean, it's $30, but I probably wouldn't buy it even for that. That's where our scoring system has to balance the value versus the quality of the whiskey. Are there edges? Are there things that I wouldn't give this to anyone?
I'm not finding any, like I've added water to this twice. It's delicious, neat, and with 2 different levels of water.
So real quick, when Mark and I found out we had the same phones, and I'm learning my phone, was going through some recordings, and I found a recording of when Jim McEwen addressed our dinner at the Isla Whiskey Academy.
Wow.
And we were going through a tasting, and the very first thing he asked, is there anything you don't like about that whiskey?
Yes.
Is there anything that's off-putting that you automatically say, I don't like about that whiskey?
No.
No.
Which
There's
is why
not.
it's the king, right?
You're right. There's nothing that I'll be, to take the bias away, I'll be transparent. I've always got a bottle of this on my bar. As a matter of fact, I keep a bottle of this in a decanter because I don't care if it oxidizes a little bit, and it's just an easy reach. I'm just like, yeah. And guess what? If I pour a little bit and all of a sudden something comes up, I change my mind, or I'm tired, am I going to finish? I don't sweat it. I'm like, that's
my
all.
Mark has killed a couple of these bottles.
It really is a great all-around easy drinking whiskey that doesn't hurt the bank, that you're never going to be disappointed. Now, on the flip side, let's change that question, Leanne.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in that whiskey that blows your mind, that you love, that you're like, OMG?
And that's what you need for a 4. You need a whiskey for a rating of 4. You need a whiskey that blows your mind.
Yeah.
And it just it's got some component that is just outstanding, and it's a stellar representation of what you're doing. Yeah.
I think for my review, what I'm looking at is it is a well-balanced whiskey. I cannot find any faults with the whiskey, but I also can't find anything that I'm like, oh, I like that's super interesting, right? It's just a really well-crafted entry-level bottle that I don't feel bad about pouring. I'm not going to be embarrassed. Like, when you come over, if I pulled that bottle out, you wouldn't have a problem with it, and neither would I, right? And I almost always have a bottle of either this or Monkey Shoulder on my bar. And because they're just good drinkers. They're everyday drinkers that I don't feel guilty about. So, am I going to give it a 4? I'll let you know a secret. Probably not. But it's a really good whiskey, and I like the little sherry notes, and I like how it's put together. It's got some sweetness and some custard and some spice, and it's got a good long finish, which a lot of times if you get a blend that has a long finish, you don't really want that. I mean,
it gets acetone towards the end.
Are you guys getting any
whiskey in it?
Yeah.
Or wood or cedar or any like wood influence in here?
I don't.
No.
Not
I think I was
especially.
most impressed with the nose. The nose was really
nose
nice.
is really pleasant. I could sit and nose this all night. I would not. There's nothing off. It's sweet. It's molasses. It's
All right, kids.
All right.
It's time to write down a score.
All right.
Yeah.
As we do that, I want to put this up, Eric. Absolutely. Semper Fi to our men and women Marines.
Yeah.
We couldn't be here without you.
No.
Happy birthday.
They always are the first to go in.
All right. My number's down.
Your number's down.
All right. Put it in the envelope. Magic envelope.
This is so hard.
And,
Dude, if anybody watching, go ahead and write your number down and see what you think. How hard it is to write a number on a piece of paper and put it in an envelope. It is really hard. If you have some naked, do this.
Leanne's got some tape.
I got tape.
She's going to tape ours closed. And then I will pack them and bring them home, and they will go in the envelope.
Well, ta-da, you just sealed that one.
That's that.
Done.
And done. All right. So those 2 scores are done. So a great idea. That was a great suggestion. I think, Andrew, if you said it, for those that are playing along at home, write your scores down if you're drinking along with us. And then at the end of this, see where you come in as we do the big reveal on that final show when we start opening these scores up and reading them off and adding them up. Find out where you fit in. If one of us is, way off, which is completely possible, or not.
So calibration. A 4 is a whiskey that blows your mind. You can't beat. A 1 is a whiskey you wouldn't pour for a
Enemy.
It's like you would never pour that again in your life if you could avoid it. A 2 is a whiskey that is
Average.
no below average, isn't it? A
I'd
2
say
would be
average. Halfway up the score.
yeah, but there's no 0. So I mean,
We should have ranked some whiskeys as 0.
There's
Not
no-
gonna-
Well, Scotch
White
Blue
Walker.
was a freaking 0.
no, it was not.
White Walker was a 0.
The plastic candle.
No, those are better than you think.
Now, that's 2 of those Andrew
I
brought.
take
to
the
the
value
show.
component into it, Leanne. What are you doing?
I can get a 175 for $30, not a 0.75.
Well, as you don't have to work tomorrow, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So a 3 is a great whiskey that you share with friends. You would not be ashamed to pour for anybody that comes in your house. A 2 is one of those you might drink by yourself, but you wouldn't generally share. Maybe. I mean, is that kind of how you would
The
put
right
it?
person, right?
Well,
To me, 2 is just an average whiskey. There's
2
nothing remarkable about it. Maybe it's got some flaws. Maybe you put water in it and it doesn't really hold up, or the finish isn't quite there. Like, it's got some stuff that needs work.
yeah,
3 to me is above average whiskey.
yeah, I would agree.
And then anything above 3, you're in solid footing.
Yeah.
So, all
Yeah.
right, man.
So-
So first round is done.
Next week, it's the same style show, same topic, same content, if you will, only ex-bourbon category. So we'll go through the ex-bourbon category, talk about the king over in that category, which is Aaron 10.
Yeah.
And we'll go through some of the fights there. Ex-bourbon came in late. It was like maybe July. We were like, or maybe late July. We're like, man, we need another category. Why don't we have just a clean, old-fashioned ex-bourbon Scotch? And so we did a lot of fighting there. There were a lot of every week. It was like ex-bourbon. And it was pretty interesting. There was some good fights there too. I got to be honest. There were a couple that fought way above their weight class. I was like, what? That was a fun category. But yeah, ex-bourbons it is, Sean. So I will bring our scores home. We'll throw them in that envelope and we'll move on to the next category. And this all culminates after we've gone through 4 of these styles shows with all the categories. We'll have one show where we talk about bottle of the year and pop champagne poppers. And
We'll
I don't know.
pull them out of the envelope and see what wins.
That's
Right.
awesome.
there'll
That's
be some special wrestling that Sean wants to see. I don't know.
Now, I
You
think
know you want that. That's just for the tiebreaker.
That's awkward.
That's how that's going to work, man.
this has been such a really good series, to be able to go, because most everybody can get these bottles, they're not unicorn bottles. They're not something, even in a Scotch depleted environment that sometimes we are here in Louisiana, you can find these bottles pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I love how y'all have included everybody else in being able to have a taste and to taste along with you all through this. And especially when you are going to the head, the chat gets insane.
It does.
With everyone jockeying
Everybody's
for
got a
position on who's calling the winner first,
Or what's in each glass, right?
Yeah.
That's Aaron 10 in that glass. And it's crazy because we think the same thing in our heads as we're talking through it.
And we're wrong too.
Yep. I mean, it's funny how often I'm like, oh, that wasn't at all what I thought it was going
not
to
what
be.
I thought.
I
yeah.
totally thought it was monkey shoulder, but it was naked. So what do you
Right.
do?
I
You know?
totally did not. Man, that was crazy.
I like the fact that we're just judging them on the taste itself. Like that's
Right.
what you should taste it on. Like, sometimes bottles have pretty packaging and that's great, but is whiskey any good? Sometimes.
We're on a blind.
I think we've been fair and mentioned it several times as well, that it's also, that night's fight. Any given team or whiskey can trip in a certain night. You know what I mean? It's so what are you tasting tonight? And what's affected by that? You know, what you had for dinner, your mood, the weather, who knows? So sometimes, you know, and that's what the whole revise a bottle. Everybody got to vote. You know, do you think that one of your bottles got disrespected, had a bad night? You know, it's been very fun, and we didn't know it was going to do this when we started. We were like, man, let's just start throwing some of these bottles up against each other, see what the hell happens. And then next thing you know, 6 months later,
I think you meant we had a plan all along, right?
yeah,
There you go.
I can't believe how many bottles we went through. When I look at, you know, the spreadsheet, I'm like, that's a lot of bottles. And
Yep.
we
A
actually
lot of
went
good
through a
fights.
couple. We had to replace a couple of them because they were, you know what I
It
mean?
went
A
down too fast.
lot of Glenmoe bottles.
Man, yeah,
So-
we need to talk about that on the
And none
final
of them
bottle
made it to the final, believe it or not. What are you gonna do?
Glenmoe was represented total in multiple categories for at least 8 weeks.
Correct.
Yep.
Glenmoe
Yeah.
10 and Lasanta, those were
Lasanta
great.
was yeah, I thought Lasanta was going to run the table. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell? Yeah, that was interesting.
So we got another good week next week. So we got 4 weeks of this, and then we'll reveal the big king at the end.
Yeah, so if you're online now, patrons, we're going to go to an after show after this. We'll talk through what we went through. Please add your input. For those that are not a patron, you need to join because it's a lot more fun. Before and after show, we can do the patron lives. And for the rest of you, we are
We'll see you next
wrapping it
week.
up. Let me-
Cheerio.
let me
Thanks,
do a
everybody.
good job and do the outro. See you guys.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Lee,
guys.
man.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, my
laughing
gosh.